And then this brick house survived, which I'll show you in another photo. This is the mile track in the background, and you can faintly see houses up here on South Street. Somewhere I have this original photo, which I have to dig out from somewhere, because it identified who this man was. So I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Ed, the red brick building that's still standing there, just a little bit further down, it's gone to seed. But is there any history behind that
The
red
brick building.
Yeah, as you're coming into Goshen on the right-hand side. Past
The house, you mean?
That house, yeah.
Yeah, that house is in this, I think, I didn't include that because I couldn't include everything. Yeah, Ray might know who lived there, that little red brick house. No?
McIntyre.
Oh, McIntyre's, that's it, McIntyre's, that's correct. This is the same area looking west, and here you can see the cheese factory building. This is the red brick house. This is where, this is all a parking lot now for Healy. This here. This is the Donovan garage, which was replaced by another garage that became a car dealership, and this is where the bagel place is located now. The beer store is in the back here. But this is all flagstone sidewalks. You can see the concrete street. It was a very, it was a neighborhood. And this is the Samuels house. Now, Philip Samuels came to Goshen in around 1860. He opened a clothing store on West Main Street and managed to succeed to be able to have a store where High Withers Liquor is now, the wine store, High Withers Liquor and Wine Store. And he was there until he passed away in 1897, and his son Sigmund took over, and they used to call him Sig Samuels. And he ran the clothing store. What was amazing was the clothing store was supposedly all 3 stories in the building, so it must have been quite a store. It was all men's clothing. And his son took over the business in 1897 and ran it till 1941, when it became Wangers moved in there. I think you're familiar with that. The sad part of the Samuel story is that after 1941, his brother wound up as a resident of the Inner Pines Sanitarium. I assume he had some kind of consumption of alcohol problem. And his sister was actually arrested for writing letters to married women and engaged women. I don't know if they were threatening letters. I've never actually read the letters. So there was they had some rough times at the end. And what was interesting was that they just abandoned the house. The house was filled with all their possessions, all their furniture, and along came the Goshen Fire Department and had a controlled burn. This lot is still a vacant lot. It's right across from the Healy garage. There's 2 houses on the right before you get to High Street. And that was what was there. And moving further down, this is Fitzgerald's wagon and harness shop, excuse me, on the corner of New Street and Greenwich. Right now, the Mexican restaurant is there in another building, in the building that replaced this. And this is the Fitzgerald house. Originally in 1875, it was the Gavin house. I assume that this is the original part of the house. This was right almost out the front door of the New Street Tavern across the street. And it was probably a worker's house that worked in the wagon shop next door. And you can see the Dykeman Govak building here on the right. And there's the demolition of the house. This is, here is the house. This is where the Mexican restaurant is. And this over here is our most recent demolition building. This was the commercial house, which we'll get to in a second. This is looking down Greenwich towards the square. This was the commercial house. Originally it was called the Old Diamond House. It was very successful because you had the wagon place across the street and you had a blacksmith shop across the street on the Sunoco site, which we'll see in a bit. But you can see, what a walkable residential area, business area it was. There were a lot of grocery stores on this street. This is a commercial hotel just before demolition. And this was Annie Gold. Oops, sorry, going backwards here. Wait a minute, going the wrong way. Oh, I lost myself here.
Back.
There we go. Sorry, I'm having trouble with this pointer here. This was Annie Globacki's grocery store. These buildings are still there. This is a New Street Tavern in the background. And there was a restaurant and a bar in this hotel. Probably the 16. This is the demolition that happened recently. This was Finance Hotel. This was across the street, down the street from the Sunoco station. This is where the old Lloyd's gas station was. You can see the structure is still there today. This was the Triggan's Barber Shop. This was a beauty shop, La Frida's, I want to say. This was the Tavern Bar, and that's my father. And this fire was December 24th, 1963. It started at like 2 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Eve. And they were there all day Christmas Day.
Ed,
Yes, sir.
we seem to have had several hotel fires in Goshen.
Yes.
Is there anything you can say about that?
Most of it, I don't know about this one, but a lot of them are, the buildings were all no longer exist for 3 reasons. One, either it was commercial development, fire, or just basic neglect. That was the 3 causes I could determine from most of these buildings. So what happened here, I don't know. Is a heater, but it was quite a fire. And then this is further down the street. This building is still there, the railroad house, but nothing else in this photo exists. Nothing. The railroad tracks were here. This was the Erie line. This was the Goshen Buick building. This was the railroad tower, there was one here, and there was also one on West Main Street. And they were removed in 1952. And then further down this block this was what I call the Independent Republican building, but it was a number of things for years. There was a billiard parlor upstairs, and then this was a row of commercial stores all this was demolished for the bank on the square. That bank took 10 business sites, 4 houses, and a barn were leveled for that bank. This is a close-up of the Goshen. It's a little blurry, but it's a close-up of the Goshen Buick building. And this building ran from Greenwich all the way over to Center Street, which is Bruin Place now. It was very long. Sorry. And this is the demolition of the Goshen Buick building. And as you can see, this is facing the Fletcher block here on the square. And actually, this was demolished after, sort of after the bank got started. This survived a little. And there was a building next door that was Arvante's liquor store. Those 2 were the last ones that were demolished for the bank. And then this was the Rose store. This was Clara's, it was Ada's and Clara's restaurant. This is Arvante's liquor store. This section survived. They tore down the Independent Republican building, left this, and then this was an auto, back in the 40s, this was an auto repair supply store. And they also had a gas pump on the square. And Jack McShane had a grocery store here in this building. And I included this just to show you how active the square was. This is another shot of the block. Here's the Esso gas station sign. And these are the houses that were up along South Church Street. Notice the concrete streets? And I don't think that's a Goshen band. I've tried to look on the computer to blow it up to try to get some identification, but I don't think it was a Goshen band. And this is the beginning of the demolition. This was in 1964. They took this They took this building down and then made a partial parking lot before they actually started construction of the bank. And then this is looking down Greenwich Ave. This was taken around 1890, this photo. It's one of my favorites because there's a guy here posing on crutches. See him over here? This is looking out of town. This is the Harriman Square is down here. And this is the Independent Republican. You can see the billiards building. And this says art gallery up here. This sign. So there must have been an art gallery upstairs here somewhere. This was Rick Bourne had a grocery store here for years. This was a long-standing grocery store was there. And over here was another grocery store on the corner.
All covered sidewalks.
All covered sidewalks. And then this is a view sometime after 1911 because the Harriman Fountain is there. And this was Doremus's grocery store. Early on, it was Horton's grocery store, and it later became Jack McShane's last grocery store. And I knew Jack McShane. I'm old enough to remember him. And they lived on Orange Avenue. But all this was gone. This is the bank is actually right about here now. And if you look in the great thing about computers is you can blow all these photos up. And if you look really closely, there's a man standing there, right there. And then I couldn't figure out if this was a horse and buggy or an automobile in the background right there. And you can see, let me go back here. I just want to comment, the roads weren't paved. So you can imagine what walking around downtown. This is a shot of Horton's. This store was a great classic country grocery store. It had a potbelly stove in the back. It had counters up the sides. Had a Cracker Barrel. And originally it was a house, and they converted it, which is when originally the square, the park area, was a residential area, and gradually commercial took over. And this was one of the first sites on the square where.
Any connection with that Horton to the Middletown Horton?
I'm not a genealogist, but I would imagine so. And these are the houses that were along South Church Street. And this was, oh, goodness, sorry. This was Sutherland's garage, which I think is really funny is they put the gas pump on the front lawn of the house next door. But, these were in their day, which I'll show you in a minute, were quite prominent townhouses. And this all these houses along South Church face the park. This is where the drive-in is about now for that was built for the bank. The movie theater, this was torn down for the movie theater. It was called the Eagle Hotel, but originally was a private residence. This guy's name is Arthur Kite. He was the coachman for the Murray family. And I included this to show you the condition of the houses and all the houses that went along South Church Street. But that's who that was.
The Murray's at Maplewood?
Murray's at Maplewood, yes, sir. And this is the beginning of the demolition. By this time, the McShane building, the grocery store building, was gone already, and these were the three houses that they took down. Here's another shot of the demolition. I assume this is the ruins of the grocery store, and this is the Presbyterian church in the background. And this is the Goshen Theater. This is located where the drive-in bank is now that they haven't used in years. This was built in 1939 by the Nihol brothers. They also built the Monroe Theater, which is, there's still a theater there, but I don't think it's the original one. But it was quite a massive building. You can see, the Goshen Buick building here on the background here.
And is that cupola on the theater?
That is on the theater, which is a great thing if you're ever looking at old photographs. I'll show you why I have an aerial view of the village. If you see that cupola, you know it was photos after 1939. There's little clues that how to date photographs. Another great way to date photographs in the village is look for the monuments, because all the monuments are documented. So you know when they were installed, and then you kind of can date the photographs. And then this was the Roy's house in the 1800s, and it later became the Huber family. And there might be some people that remember them. They were a couple that lived here. This was demolished for, I don't understand, for no reason. There's nothing, nothing was ever built on it. This is a vacant lot. You can see the bank driveway is here now. The drive-through bank is over here on the right, and then you drive around. But they tore the house down, and this is just lawn. It was always lawn. They never replaced it. I always thought this would have been a great visitor center or a museum or something, but that didn't happen. And this is the aerial view I was going to show you. And you can see right over here, that's the movie theater. So this happened this photo is after 1939. They changed the parking along West Main Street and Main Street in 1952. So this is pre-1952 because the cars are still facing head in. So that's a clue. Over here, this was Sarah Lumberyard. This is West Main Street here, I should tell you. This was Sarah Lumberyard, which is gone. This was the Van Vliet Furniture Storage Building. That's gone. That's now a parking lawn for the building that's next door. Over here, this was Fine's Hotel. These three buildings, everything, this is the railroad house, which I showed you before in the railroad track. These buildings are all gone. This is the Farmers Hotel, which is still there. This is where the Sunoco station is, and you can just get an edge of the Landry, he was a blacksmith, right here. The blacksmith shop is still there. And that lasted until, I believe, I would say the early 60s, the early 1960s. And up here, this is an unusual shot. This is the county jail. And you really never saw this side of the jail. You usually saw the back of it from Court Lane. And what else we have here? This is the Occidental Hotel. This is the post office, which was built in 1935. So, and you can see, let's see what else is there. This is the old town garage, which was the original Catholic church, which we'll get to in a minute. And then this is, here you can see, this is the barn that was torn down. It was behind the Goshen Theater. That's gone. This barn over here is still there, this one. But this one over here was torn down. And this sort of lined up with the back of the Goshen Buick building. And I really don't know what, I remember the building, but I don't ever remember what was in there. And then you get a little glimpse over here of ruined place. This house is still there.
Bus garage in there at some point?
Pardon?
Bus garage?
That was Sutherland's.
Okay.
That was the first bus garage, which was in the other picture. Now, this is the Elias Post House, which was across the street from St. James Church. It's a vacant lot now. Been a vacant lot since the house was removed. It was designed by Cornelius Ackerman, who worked on the Presbyterian Church. This was built as soon as he finished the church. They built this house. He also built the Pope House on the corner of Main Street and Orange Avenue, which is under renovation now. That was an Ackerman house. He also built the house behind it, which was the Howells lived there, if anybody's familiar with that, and one across the street. He was an architect and developer. And this was built around 1878, I want to say. It was the site of the Montague Hotel. Later it became the Hathaway House Hotel. And then it became, in 1926, I think, 23 or 26, it became the Presbyterian parish house. And the house was, let me see here, I'm going to refer to my notes, give you some statistics. It was quite a large house. The interesting thing about it was it had entrances on all three sides. The house it had a living room, a parlor, I should say, that was 17 by 22 feet. Actually, it was built around 1872. I'm sorry, I was a little late. And then it became the Young Ladies Institute after the Hathaway House. I'm sorry. The Hathaway House became the Young Ladies Institute. That was demolished to build this. And then this was they were getting ready to demolish the house. There you can see the windows all boarded up.
Ed,
Yes, sir.
was the Ackerman family, that Ackerman that was the designer, was that the Ackermans that lived on Main Street, that's where the M&T Bank is?
That I don't know. I don't know.
Who was a candy maker?
Yes. She used to sit in the window and read her newspaper. It was always great to ride by, and she would be sitting in the bay window, sitting there reading her newspaper. Not that I was. This is the house. Not that I was peeping in or anything. This is the post house. The Elias Post House, halfway through demolition. And there's this young man riding a bike down South Church Street, right here. Now, this was the Washington Hotel. This occupies the site where the Goshen Inn is now, Delancey's restaurant. This was a hotel that later became another ladies' school. This photo was taken. There were people riding a horse and sled through the snowstorm in the park. I think that's probably the top of the sled there, you can see. And this was in the background. This house is also gone. There's a new office building there, a lawyer's office. This is the end of Lawyers Row here in the entrance to historic track. This house, this also had when it was the Washington Hotel, had a bowling alley that was installed for the men that were working on building the Erie Railroad. And they installed a bowling alley to give the guys something to do. And there it is in its glory when it was the Young Ladies Institute.
Right where the Goshen Inn is.
Goshen Inn. This was demolished for the Goshen Inn in 1911. In 1911, let me just, a little bit of history. Edward Harriman, who the Harriman Fountain is named for, died in 1909. And after he died, his wife went on a spending spree. She paid for the Harriman Fountain that's there today. She paid for, the Goshen Inn was built as the Orange County Hunt Club. She was a member of that, and I'm sure was a big contributor of that. She also restored historic track with a new judges' stands, a new grandstand. So she spent some of his money after he left.
And the Bear Mountain Bridge too, I think.
And then this is the Flatiron Building. This is Van Vliet's building that was on West Main Street. There's a new office building there now. And you can see the Orange Blossoms Monument up at the end of the street. This and a horse and buggy coming down Webster Avenue, which was also at the time called Greenwich Avenue. And this was the square was surrounded by these these are cottonwood trees. And in the spring, the cottonwood would fly all over the square, and it'd be like white all over the road. And you can see in this photo, the street is still dirt, and the old park benches, which were really just benches.
Ed,
Yes.
what was the purpose of so many buildings having that overhang over the sidewalk?
Well, people didn't want to get wet. So, and I am sure it also served as air conditioning in the summer because it kept the sunshine out of the buildings.
Oh.
And most people walked downtown. I don't, they didn't, it wasn't until later. Actually, I'll show you. I have a photo coming up. This is the building, the Van Vliet. The Van Vliets were undertakers and furniture makers. And they operated out of this building. This is the building before the Flatiron section was put on the left here. And the building was in pretty good shape in this photo. I assume this might be a stepping stone for horses. It's a little high, but I can't really figure out what else it would be. And then this is in 1918. This is a military parade coming down Main Street. There's a photographer standing up here taking pictures on the roof. This is the Harriman Fountain. And by this time, by 1918, you can see the horse and buggies were gone. Everyone had an automobile. And then you can see also the residential, there's a house here, house here. This is the Wilcox building, which is still standing. The fire tower, which is still standing. This was the Jackson house over here for years. It's now, there's offices in that building. But that building is still there. And this is is a photo of the Van Vliet building before demolition. This was the site of Samuel Owen's chair factory. It was the first business on that section of Main Street when Main Street was cut through once the railroad came in 1841. That was the first business that was on that section of the street. Anyone want to hazard a guess where this is? This is, nobody? This is North Church Street. This was, I haven't done a lot of research. I don't know in the 60s who actually lived here. I haven't done that much research. But this was a Smith house, and this was a Vandermark house, I believe. And these were demolished to make way for the parking lot that's there. And this was the bank, which is now the Orange Bank of the Orange Bank, which just moved in there. And there was a drive-through between West Main and the parking lot. So people would come through from Main Street, drive through the parking lot, and out to North Church Street. And this was obviously taken in the 50s, early 60s, probably those cars look like. And this was the Owens house. This house was where the Enterprise car rental business is now. It was the tire business recently, within a few years ago. And it was quite a large house, actually. And then I included this. This is the Occidental Hotel. This was two other buildings. This was the barber shop. And then this was in later years, it was Cullen Insurance Agency, Bill Lewis's sporting goods shop. And this was the St. Elmo, which was a 52-room hotel across from the train station, which is now the police station. And I'm repeatedly asked how all this fit on that little piece of land that's there. It's a vacant lot next to the pharmacy restaurant. This is what was there. The St. Elmo, which was probably the biggest fire ever in the village of Goshen, was in 1920, February 3rd. And this started probably from a fire in a chimney fire.
Hey Ed,
Yes, sir.
we're just talking to the gentleman next to me. Teeny Sawyer has haberdashery next door.
Teeny was in the Occidental building.
That's what I mean. I'm going to go back one. And blue jeans were $2.95. If that shows our age.
Yeah, and that became, after that, it became Jeb's variety. Well, Jeb started out in the staircase of the Occidental. Like, they closed off the staircase, and then he moved into Teeny's store afterwards. And then this is the Occidental fire in 1983. And this is, if there was ever a mysterious fire, this would have been it. There's some stories about what actually transpired here. But they leveled it. There's the demolition, and I also included this. because this is another vacant lot across the street. This is where it was Potter's Variety Store. It was, the tavern was here. Barnes's Meat Market was here. These buildings are still here. This building is still here. This was a grocery store. Knapp's grocery store was here on the corner. This was a hotel. This is the Perry Hall, which is Catherine's restaurant. This is Elsie's, is right there, which I read recently was a dress shop, and some other kind of business was in the front portion. I forget. No, it predates the barber shop. Now, anybody want to guess what this one is? Has anyone seen this before?
The Chase Bank.
This is, quicker. There's only one thing in this picture that's still there. That's the Erie Station. This is the corner of the police station. This is Canal Street.
Methodist Church.
This is the Methodist Church. And then this is the Catholic Church, the Presbyterian Church, excuse me. Now, the Methodist Church was built on this site in 1848, and it was there until 1884. So it was only there for 36 years. Not a single wooden church in the village survived. It was very popular. It obviously became very popular to build churches of brick or stone. But none of these churches survived. This was the 1813 Presbyterian church that was in the park, that was moved from the park all the way up North Church Street to this location. This is where the Quick Stop is today, and the
Tool place.
the tool place.
They moved it from there to the.
Yes, they moved it, they put it on logs, and supposedly dragged it up the street. I've heard different times. I read once where they did it in February, and it snowed, and it got stuck at the square, and it sat at the square for a week before they could move it. And then recently I read that they started in November to move it. So I don't know which date was actually true. But this is, the Chase Bank is here now.
There was a lumberyard there too.
Yes, and also, when this building closed in 1884, from 1885 to 1889, it was a roller skating rink. And if you read the Independent Republicans during that period, almost every week there was a report on they had live music here. And I guess for like 4 years it was quite a jumping place. But they never mentioned where it was. And but it's identified on maps. And then after that, it became, a Mr. Knight owned it, who sold cement and hay, and then it was taken over by, eventually by the Conklin Cummings Lumberyard.
Hey, Ed.
Yes.
On the church pew ends, in that church,
Yes.
we use as siding for 180 North Church.
Right. After this was demolished in, let's see here, they moved the church. Here, my notes say they moved the church on November 28, 1871, and on April 16, 1903, demolition began, and that's when the pews were taken out and used for the house further up North Church Street.
You work for the Presbyterian or the Methodist?
The Presbyterian. The Methodist Church survived. It became part of the Conklin Lumberyard.
The building to the right, is that a milk station? This is the railroad.
This is the corner. This is North Church Street right here.
The other railroad went to Campbell Hall, right?
Yes, that was the Maybrook line.
The Methodist Church is the one on it.
This is the Methodist Church.
Right, that still exists though.
No,
The park,
that's,
it's supposed to, it
no,
was supposed to, it
no, that was demolished. That's a new building.
I thought it was taken apart
No.
and moved to a site. It was.
It was, well, I don't know where it went.
And when they took it down, they numbered all the pieces, whoever bought the building itself, numbered all the pieces, and carted it off, and I forget who it is, I have to look through the Indy again, but it's in his barn or shed someplace. To be reassembled whenever.
As far as I know, it was never reconstructed, but that's a new building there.
Yeah, I know, but it was supposed to be taken apart, just like the cupola of the county building,
Yes.
taken apart, reassembled.
Yeah, well, here's a close-up of the building. And here it is when it became the lumber yard. And you can still see indications of the big windows here. And then this is, here we are about 1820. This is the second courthouse on the square, which is where the county building, the old county building is now. This was the Presbyterian church. This is the church that was moved. And then the new church, this church actually faced Park Place, which at the time was part of Main Street. It wasn't until 1841, when the train came through, that they opened up this part right here. You can see it in 1820 it was a walking path. This is the Episcopal Church, the first Episcopal Church, 1803 Episcopal Church, that was demolished, and the stone church was built in 1853. This was another ladies' institute that was on the park. This was the original Farmers Hall Academy, which was demolished. And over here, you can see this is where the Washington Hotel, this is the Washington Hotel, and then these were houses that were along that part of the park, on Park Place. And here's a map just to show you. This is the Presbyterian Church. This is the Methodist Church. This is the lumber yard, which originally was N.C. Sanford's lumber yard here. This was his house here, which is currently being renovated. This house was a brick house that was demolished for a gas station that later became a bank. The bank recently moved to West Main Street. And this is the Owens house that I showed you before. And these were the houses where the parking lot is for the that we have today.
And that's the Catholic Church right behind that?
That is, you were ahead of me. This is the Catholic Church up there. And the reason it was called Church Street is there were actually churches on Church Street. This is the original Catholic Church that later became a movie theater that was owned by the Hock family, who owned the St. Elmo Hotel. It had a balcony. And it later became the town garage. And that was torn down, I want to say in July 10th, 1967. And the new church on Murray Avenue was built in 1885.
And
Yes, sir.
I remember that building, not the church part, but I remember when it was the town of Goshen garage.
Mhm.
I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I would go down there and watch the fellows work. A dirt floor. I mean, you're showing my age now, but really, this is it.
I think there's a historic marker there with your name on it. This place in Purdy Hall where Catherine's is, were the first Nickelodeons, which were machines. You would go in and you'd put a nickel in and you'd crank it, and that's how you saw a movie. And then after, this evolved into an actual movie theater.
Is that the actual parking lot of the village hall, town hall?
Yes,
Part of it.
part of it. Town hall is over here.
When we repaved the town hall parking lot about 3 or 4 years ago, we found a stone. And we thought it might be the cornerstone to that particular building. And we took it up to the Catholic Church. And it was certainly part of the foundation, but they already had one up there for building the new church on Marie Avenue.
And then, going back up North Church Street for a second. This is the ruins of the brick house that I showed you in that overview map. This was the demolition picture. This was demolished to make way for the gas station, and later became the bank. This is North Church Street over here. This house is still standing. It's been re-sided. And this was, let's see, it was in the 1800s. It was a Hoffman house, and the Gould family lived here in the early 1900s. And I vaguely remember it because there used to be a big hedge along here, and these were all maple tree stumps. They cut all the trees down, and these are all flagstone sidewalks. I wish they had taken a picture of the house before they got this far. And then this is Conklin Cummings Lumberyard taken from Grand Street. This is the Montgomery line that's right here. This track ran right into the lumberyard where they could load up the train cars. And then these are houses along West Street. There's an office building here now. And then the great thing about this picture, this was Wilkes Cold Chute over here, which was actually right where Quick Stop is now. The Presbyterian Church was right on the corner, and then this coal shed was right next to it, owned by Mr. Wilkes. And I do have other pictures of that, but it does appear here. Now, this is, we're on West Main Street now. This is Vail and Armstrong's store. This building is the Happy Booty Yoga. But I included this to show you what Goshen looked like before actually brick took over. This is mainly what, these were probably similar to the buildings that were on Lawyers Row that burned in 1841 and 1843. But this was the only actual, that I've ever read, building and people that were involved in the Underground Railroad. This was Wilmot and Robert Montgomery owned the store right here, and then there was a dentist upstairs, Dr. Graham, and they would escaped slaves would be hidden in the basement and then ushered over to the train station. And supposedly Mr. Murray, Ambrose Spencer Murray, president of the bank, would, who had interest in the Erie Railroad, would provide tickets to these guys, and they would get these people onto the train and out of Goshen.
So that would be New Street?
This is New Street over here. This is where the Just Bagels is, Not Just Bagels is here, and there's a brick building here now in the corner. This is a vacant lot. That was where the tavern was and Barnes's that I showed you earlier. Then this is on West Main Street. This was where Ike Soreski had his first auto supply business. This building was demolished. This is currently a parking lot for Kennett's and the addition. This was a part of the, I assume Soreski's actually built this part, and it became a shirt factory, and now Kennett's dance studio is here. And then back up here was Weinert's grocery store, and later became Anderson's Lumberyard. And this is Reed's. This is the building. This is where actually the parking lot is right now. When you pull in here, this building is the Italian restaurant that's still there. And this was Reed's, and a dry goods store, really. And then it became a grocery store, and then it became Anderson's in 1941. And then further up the street,
At the building right on the other side of the street that was knocked down not too long ago, that's the empty lot now, the parking lot?
that was Van Vliet's.
Oh.
That was Van Vliet's. That was used for furniture
Okay, you said that.
storage, yeah. Oh. Sorry, getting ahead of myself there. This is West Main Street. This is McBride's Trucking. And along here, this is looking out of town. You can see the steeple of the AUMP church here in the background, which was also a wooden church, which was demolished for the expansion of McBride's. And along here, on this side also, these were duplex houses, they were double houses, and they were demolished for the expansion of McBride's. This, I believe, is the building where the car used to be a car wash. Now it's a garage.
Yeah.
And then on the corner, there were two more of these houses on the corner of William Street and West Main Street. And then this was the cider and vinegar factory that was out at the end of West Main Street. One of the buildings is still there. St. John's Cemetery is over here to the left. And these were the railroad tracks going out of the village. And one of the buildings survived. There's a cement building there that I think was part of this complex. And this was the Meinhold and Heinemann cider and plant manufacturing. And actually, you can see all the employees came out to have their picture taken. Having pictures taken used to be an event, especially if you're looking at pictures of old houses. If they had a horse, they would bring the horse out, and everybody that was in the house would come out and pose. People get confused thinking this is the St. James Rectory. This is the Gale Westcott house that was on the site of the Methodist Church. This was built in 1754 and demolished in 1878. So it was on this site for 124 years. The Westcotts were related to the Gales, so it stayed in the family. This location was used when there was a border dispute between New York and New Jersey. They met here to resolve their issues there. And this is a typical Goshen fence. Some guy in Goshen made a fortune building these fences around the village. Most houses had fences around them, and this style was used repeatedly. And then this is on Webster Avenue. We're moving up. This is James Scott Jr.'s business. This was located on the corner of Court Lane and Webster Avenue. I'll explain it a little better in a minute. This is James Scott here, and he is on the cover of my Goshen Revisited book, giving a speech in Sight Hill Cemetery. He was a police officer later in life. His father had a business across the street, another wagon business across the street that was right behind the 1841 courthouse. And then here it is in later. This picture is from 1921. This shows you sort of how by then the building sort of was in disrepair. This house was on the corner. This was a Murray house. It was replaced, and this is a Model T Ford supposedly right here. And it was replaced by the Social Services building. I don't know what they use this for now, but it was
Yeah.
Is that the Board of Elections?
Yeah.
Well, and the building in the background here is gone too. This one's been demolished or expanded. And this was the Hoyt House, and this house was behind the Main Street building, which is now the business office that was the second Goshen High School. And this faced Main Street, and they used the alley between the music hall and the Main Street building for access to this. It was, and later, like once the high school was built, the Main Street building was built, they used this for agricultural classes. Because Webster Avenue really didn't connect to Erie Street, so their access was facing Main Street. And this is in the parking lot now. And this is the first Goshen High School. This was on the corner of Webster and Erie Street. This is when they became the Goshen Central School System. And this predates the building that's on Main Street. And it's basically just four big classrooms on each floor. This is the entrance down here.
That was just the high school?
Later on, it was used as an elementary school too. But I read where in old yearbooks, they were complaining about how inadequate this building was. And then here it is just before demolition.
What year was that demolished?
Let's see if I have an exact date. I would assume it was around 1968, if I were going to hazard a guess.
61.
Was it that early? Yeah. Okay. It was gone in the 60s. And that could have been me on a bicycle there. It's an old Schwinn bike. Yep. Mine was blue. And this is the house. This is Thompson's stables that was on the site of the Main Street school building, the business office building. And Mr. Thompson owned it. Eulin was a horse. He set a record at historic track, 1 minute 58 3/4 seconds. This building was later moved across the street behind a house that was on. It was moved across the street onto Erie Street. These two houses were on the corner of Erie. They were demolished for the Orange County Government Center. This was a Fitzgerald house here, and this was Margaret Gleacy lived in this house, who owned Robinson's stationery store, where Howells is now. She was a nice lady. This is Main Street here in front, and then Erie Street is over here. This is the Harford house. This was on the corner. This is another example of a house that was in the background. No one ever took a picture of it before it was demolished. Well, I have a demolition picture, but this is if you're a bottle collector, this is where they had a bottling business in this little barn here. This house is still here. This is Orange Avenue over here. This is the brick house on the corner of Orange Avenue.
That's the Rhinebeck Bank?
The Rhinebeck Bank. This is the demolition of the house. The Hall of Fame, the Trolley Museum is over here on the right. Now this is the Pines. The Pines was a major house in Goshen. This was next to Village Hall, Maplewood. It faced, Maplewood is over here on the right. This house did not face the street, it faced Maplewood. This Main Street's down here. The original part was an inn, and it went through a series of owners, and then George Wickham bought it, and he lived there, and then he moved across the street and built what became the Inner Pines. This was the Pines. It was the home of Henry Bacon. He was a congressman. He married Susan Randall, whose father was Speaker of the House in Washington. Well, Henry Bacon's wife died, and the next year he married Susan Randall Bacon. He didn't wait very long at all. And this house burned. Henry died in 1915, and the house burnt down in 1916, December 22nd, 1916. And then Susan Randall, his wife, moved to the White House behind the old Goshen Library that's still there. But this went through John Durer, who was a local lawyer, lived here. And then the Wickham family basically moved across the street into what became known as the Inner Pines. And it was the Wickham house until 1866, when Robert Riddell bought it, who was president of the Erie Railroad, who was basically a puppet of Cornelius Vanderbilt in his attempt to take over the Erie Railroad. And he managed to get Robert Riddell in office in his attempt to take over the Erie Railroad.
Ed?
Yes?
Not to digress, but since you brought up Riddell, could you
tell the audience the infamous story about the train station?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Robert Bedell and Wisner Murray, who lived across the street in Maplewood, married sisters. Robert Bedell married Harriet, and Wisner Murray married Gertrude. And their father's name was Chauncey Bernard. And Robert Bedell, I assume from what I've read, was having an affair and eventually applied for divorce from Harriet. Well, one night in July of 1876, when Robert Bedell was getting off the train at the Erie station, he was met by Wisner Murray, Ambrose Spencer Murray Jr., and Chauncey Barnard, the father-in-law, and a fight ensued. And I guess Windsor was trying to beat Robert Bedell with a horsewhip, and Robert Bedell pulled out a gun and shot Wisner Murray. So it went to trial, and Robert Bedell was found not guilty by reason of self-defense. But what happened was his divorce got so messy that he left Goshen, and this house sat vacant until Frederick Seward came along and opened the sanitarium. So it was empty for almost 18 years. And Robert Bedell didn't really have a happy ending either. I mean, he had lawsuits for like the rest of his life, and his divorce was granted though. And then Wisner Murray died Wisner Murray lived for like 6 days after he was shot. So, and he's buried in St. James Cemetery. And this is, originally the house didn't look like this. When George Wickham built the house, it was Robert Bedell who Victorianized it and put the big tower on, the enlarged porch. And I remember when this was demolished. I don't have a demolition picture of it. This was the carriage house that was built by Robert Bedell that was on Montgomery Street, which is now, there's like townhouse buildings here. This house is still, this was the White house, White family house. This was a huge egg farm. It went from Montgomery Street all the way to Erie Street and up to Murray Avenue. Murray Avenue runs up here. This is Montgomery Street right here. And this is the long driveway up to this house.
Where the laundry was later on?
It became a laundry later on, yes. And I think we determined the other day, 1949, it became the laundry. And you can see these are houses along, this is it. I think this is, these houses are up on Murray, on the top of Murray, and these are probably up on Scotchtown Avenue here.
But that was a carriage house.
That was the carriage house for the Inner Pines building. Yes.
And was the greenhouses, was that part of the whole estate? Tom's Greenhouse?
No, that was a separate business. I don't believe the greenhouses were attached, no. I assume, and I lived next door to this building for quite a while, and I assume there were apartments up here, and probably employees of Bedell actually lived upstairs in this building. This was a Cutterback house. This was on Main Street. The Cutterback boys came from Cutterbackville, and this house was where the M&T Bank is today. This was Mrs. Ackerman's house, who we mentioned earlier, was next door here. There's the house just before demolition. And then, and here we are today. This is the Jansen Haight House. This was on this site. The foundations that you see out here, this is the ruins of the foundation. This is the building. That's what you see. This is the foundation out here is from this house. And this house was later expanded to, when the Haights got married to David Henry Haight, it became this, which eventually became part of the Salesian property, and the Salesian brothers bought the property. And the Haights are buried in the mausoleum, which is over here. And then after the Haights passed on, John McCullough bought it and called it Lowood Park. And then Grant Brown called it Brownlee Park. And if you notice the gates on the corner of Craigville and Main Street, there's a B on the gates. That's from Hugh Brownlee. And when the Haights owned it, it was called Map Knoll, which is what appears on the historic marker that's out there now. And then this is what the tracks look like coming through town. This was the Samuels building that we talked about earlier, right here. That later became High Withers. And you can see that this is the gatehouse on West Main Street. This is the police station today, this is all a parking lot now. And I really thank you for coming. This is actually, this is the end. This was a very typical scene in Goshen when we had cows. This is actually Mr. Houston on Houston Road, and this is 17A, the Florida Road, and Mr. Houston lived in.
I think Doug is in that.
And Doug Bloomfield is standing over here. And if there's any questions, yes, sir.
Is that Harold Houston?
That is Harold Houston, as far as I know, yes.
He's my great uncle.
Well, there he is, yeah. As far as I know. The photograph isn't identified, but I always assumed it was him. I remember him, so.
Wow.
Any other questions?
Beautiful. Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
Ed.
Yes, Mr.
And
Bloomfield.
I worked with Harold Houston when I was 14, all the way to college.
Was that, what year was that?
It was really
And I remember him and Floyd McEwen running his farm as well, taking the calves up Houston Road to the barn.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was a wonderful, wonderful man.
Yeah, he was.
Wonderful.
Yeah, he was. Yes?
When you gave the statistics of the number of bars and
Mhm.
grocery stores, what was the population of Goshen back then?
The population was about 3,500. But you have to understand, by 1897, the railroad was here, and Goshen was, people used to come to Goshen, so that's why Goshen was notorious for the number of bars and liquor stores, and grocery stores. I think everybody owned a grocery store at one time or another. There was someone over here, yes? I'm sorry, I can't.
Why so many female institutes?
Well, there were no public schools.
What they do with the boys?
The boys probably went to the Farmers Hall Academy, where Noah Webster taught. Yeah. I assume that was all boys back then.
And a girls' institution was like...
It was like a private school. They were private schools, yeah. And then before that, everybody went to a one-room schoolhouse. It wasn't until the red brick building was built that was the demise of the one-room schoolhouses. Yes, sir.
In the local history room, there's a book from that ladies' school. There's in the front of it. It talks about one of the students and that names the school. And it's dated 1863 or something like that. I believe the local history room is going to be open.
Yes, Ann Roach will be upstairs after this if anyone wants to go up and
Yeah, if you've never been
have a tour of the room. If you've never been there. And if you have any suggestions for another talk at some time, just let me know. And I can try and see what I can come up with. But I really thank you all for coming. It's